So this is an interesting topic. What really happens to children who are separated from their moms and dads? It's crucial. Obviously, what's going on right now in our country, this is such an important topic, and I think it's something that we need to approach. And I'm going to approach it from a psychological, emotional, behavioral development point of view. At the very end, I'll talk a little bit of politics. I'm not really into politics at all. I am into treating people humanely and looking out for the welfare of children. I don't care what country they live in. We know right now what's going on is incredibly inhumane. Whether you're Republican, Democrat, love Trump, hate Trump, doesn't matter. It's inhumane. The recent thing that was just signed by Trump has nothing to do with the 2,000 kids right now that have been separated from their mom and dad. Let's get that straight. And so let's talk about the reality. And I'm going to share a story with you right now as a counselor and a life coach and a professional speaker and #1 best-selling author. I'm going to share a story right now about how a child who turned 50 came to my office and had been outrageously hampered his whole life by a separation from his mom when he was a little boy. And this example is going to be an example that was given to me by my own personal experience as a counselor. And it's an example I think that's incredibly important because what happened to this young boy turned man is outrageously similar to what's going on right now, and yet it's outrageously different, which is going to be the key here. When a child is separated from their mom or dad in their younger years, and when I say younger years, I say up until the age of 21, believe it or not, because that's when it takes for the brain to be fully matured, functioning, a fully matured, functioning brain. It happens around the age of 20 to 25, but what happens is something outrageously traumatic. It creates high levels of anxiety that can last for life. It creates outrageous distrust of not just authority figures, but also potential partners for life. Depression, anxiety, addiction. Those are three of the most common things that come. PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder. Those are 3 or 4 of the major events that happen when a child is separated from their mom or dad when they're very young. As I said earlier, even up into their early 20s. So here we have these little kids come from countries, and many of them don't know English. Many of them aren't old enough to even remember phone numbers, although there was one really incredible story on the media by this little girl who had memorized her mother's and grandmother's phone numbers. Brilliant move by the mom. But the wailing, the crying, or the isolation, or the complete shutdown of emotions is extremely normal in regards to emotional and physiological behavior from a child that is separated from their mom or dad. And even if they have a support system, which is the story I'm going to tell you right now, it does not protect them from having long-term anxiety, depression, addiction, and more. So a gentleman came in a while ago into my office to work with me as his counselor, 50 years of age, because he had struggled with anxiety, depression, had horrendous intimate relationships. He could be filled at any moment with outrageous emotion. When he's in a loving relationship, he could fly into fits of rage. He had outrageous issues with emotional eating, so he was very, very overweight. And he came into the office and he basically said, David, you're the last shot. You're the last chance. So we were working together, and no one had ever figured out why, ever since he was a young boy, that he reacted to the world the way he did, that he had no control over his emotions, hence emotional eating. As we worked together longer and longer, I brought him back into his childhood, which is one of the great techniques that counselors can do. And we found this incredible event that had happened. He had a mom and a dad. He had an older sister who was like 80 years older than him. He had a grandmother that lived with them. He had aunts and uncles. He had all kinds of support. But for a period of time, about 6 months, the mom was really sick when he was a little kid, and she was gone. She went to the hospital. She was in the hospital, and dad and sis and grandmother and aunts and uncles were constantly showering him with love and support. And they were telling him what had gone on. That mom was in the hospital, that he can't visit her. He actually did get a chance to see her once a month, but we can't spend much time with her. And as soon as she comes home, you'll have your mom back. Well, you would think that's pretty logical, right? You'd think that a boy who's surrounded by loving dad and sister and grandmother and aunts and uncles would be able to fly through that experience, just understand it's part of life, and grow up to be a healthy, mature, non-addicted individual. It wasn't the case at all. when we went back and found that the separation from his mom when he was a young kid, even though it was logical, and even though he stayed in his home, and even though he had incredible family support systems around him, it wasn't enough to decrease the PTSD, the post-traumatic stress disorder, from being separated from his mom as a little boy. Okay, now, as we worked together and got to this core issue of why he had acted the way he had acted his whole life, he was able then to come to terms with the outrageous pain that he had been put through his whole life, only because he didn't understand. But here's the thing that's most important. After working with them for a year, we were able to release the PTSD, the stress, the anxiety. I was able to get him to work through his emotions, talk about his emotions. I was able to get him to release the emotional addiction to food that he had. And he's well on his way to being a very healthy, mature adult male, about ready to start his first really healthy relationship. That is so different than what's going on today by the own U.S. government in separating these children from their parents. And if you read the reports, the American Medical Association, along with a slew of other organizations, have been condemning this movement, have been condemning the separation of children and family. And while Trump signed this order that it won't happen in the future, there's nothing in the order talking about these kids. If you don't want to listen to what I have to say, pick up the USA Today. And if you're a Trump supporter, you'll probably say it's fake news. But, it's not. It's from the American Medical Association and many other organizations that will tell you exactly what I'm telling you right now. If I didn't have the personal experience, and the one story I told you is one of millions since 1990, when I started working as a coach and a counselor. Almost 30 years now, I have worked with so many individuals, just like the client I talked about, who through a variety of reasons, it could be that mom or dad was an addict or an alcoholic and they weren't home. It could be they were a workaholic and they weren't home. It could be that they were shipped away to boarding schools because mom and dad didn't want to deal with them as kids. There's all kinds of separation anxiety, abandonment, rejection issues that come when you're separated from mom or dad. I'm going to make this very clear, anywhere from the ages of birth until early 20s. So when we look at what's going on right now, it's atrocious. It's not going to do anything, as of we know right now, for the 2,000 kids that are separated. If you read the reports, and there's I don't think it's the head of the American Medical Association. I forget what organization she is, but she's extremely. I think she's the head of the Pediatric Association, the Medical Association of Pediatric Doctors. And she even reported today that as she went into these detention centers and looked at these kids, the outrageous stress effect that it's having on them already, and it's only been a short period of time. We have to look at this from a humanitarian point of view, not a political point of view. And the change in the politics must come from you and I putting pressure on the government to wake up and to start doing things in a way that are humanitarian based. I was on a radio show in Canada today talking about this very topic. And, we said, listen, the percentage of people that are trying to come into the country illegally, of course, is terrible. However, the percentage of those people that are murderers, that are drug addicts, that are alcoholics, et cetera, is outrageously low, according to my estimation, and most of the people that work in the world that I work in, of personal growth, counseling, therapy, et cetera. There has to be a way that we not only change the way that we deal with the immigrants, undocumented immigrants trying to come in, but also with the children. And I said right now, and I'll say this again, the long-term effects are absolutely horrendous. There's nothing that you can do now for those 2,000 kids other than give them incredible support and try to nurture them through this period of time, but it might be too late. Of course, these families don't have the money my client did to be able to come in and to pay per hour in order to figure out what the hell happened and why am I a food addict and why have I sabotaged all my intimate relationships. What happens to children when they're separated is outrageous. I think it was the group of Lutheran ministers or Methodist ministers came out full blast too against this policy. I hope that you'll have the strength to listen to what I'm saying objectively. I don't care at all about your political stance. I do care about individuals that are being screwed over right now, young children that are being set up for more failure. And these are kids coming from failure already. Remember what I said earlier about the client that I worked with? When he was raised in a loving household, they never moved. He had a grandmother that lived with him, a dad, a sister, who were all incredibly sympathetic and empathetic to him missing his mom who was in the hospital. That's quite the opposite of what these children have right now. These children are coming from atrocities. They're coming from gang-related warfare. They're coming from incredibly economically deprived countries, Honduras, Nicaragua, etc. You know, these kids are already at the lowest end of the totem pole. And for them to go through this experience is going to push them, many of them, over the edge, possibly for life. I hope that you'll have compassion. I hope you'll share this video. I hope you open up your heart. There's so many ways that you can get involved and engaged. Politically is one. Another is that there's so many campaigns that are being raised right now to help so that we have the money in order to work with these kids and these families and get them to a better place emotionally, even financially, physiologically in life, so that they don't carry these scars forward. The odds, in my opinion, are they're going to carry the scars forward. We have to change. We, as a country, have to change. And I hope that this is going to be one small step in getting that change to occur. Hope you have a beautiful day.